So today is a continuation of last week's session. Last week we spoke about the alumnus of Pidyon HaBen. Is it an actual Pidyon or just matnas kahuna? And today we discuss more aloha lemaisa. So let's start off with the Ramah about shlichus. Eno av yochel livnois al yidei shaliach, v'gam ein beis din poi denoisoi belo yohav. So there are two halachas in this Ramah. One halacha is shlichus doesn't apply. And all the achronim wonder, and why not? According to all the klolim we have about shlichus b'mitzvahs, and we've been learning together for years now. I don't remember how many years, it's about 5 years at least. And we went through so many sugyas, and I believe we also spoke about shlichus b'mitzvahs. So according to all the basics, there's no reason shlichus shouldn't apply to Pidyon HaBen. And then the Ramo says a second halacha, a different halacha. Nobody could be paida besides the father. Based in has no authority and no possibility to do Pidyon HaBen without the father's consent. And even with the father's consent, if there is no shlichus, Beis Din could never do Pidyon HaBen. Last week we already mentioned the Birga. We will briefly go through some sources we discussed last week. We'll just fly through them because it is nogea le'inyanenu. But before continuing this shiur, I just want to dedicate today's shiur refuah shalema for a little baby that doesn't even have a name yet, and he needs rachamei shamayim. So the title we learned today is dedicated le'refuas Tinok ben Aliza Leora. Shekodesh Baruch Hu yishlach lo refuah shalema. He should have a bris b'korov, and he should be have a richas yomim vishonim, and his beautiful, wonderful family, who probably wants anonymity. The beautiful family should have so much nachas from this baby and from all the others. So the Ramo says there is no shlichus. And besides the fact there is no shlichus, Beis Din has no authority. And the Gaon disagrees, and he has two different arguments. Source number 2, Kol ze tamua. The loma ba'ya lidei shliach, the shlicha shalom kamoisoi. Ela de'afacha yochel livdoi sefelo belo yidatu shalav. It is nothing more than chayiv ba'alma. It is like a debt. You had a baby boy, firstborn to your wife. You owe shevet kena chamishu slaim. Anybody could pay your debt. And last week I said, theoretically, potentially, this could be an awful time bomb. You know, a person who really wants to trouble another and hurt him. So Mr. A plans a beautiful Pidyon HaBen, and he invests $50,000, comes along Mr. B, and he tells him, I already did it. Send home the kohen. You could have a beautiful party, make it a birthday party, but it's not a Pidyon HaBen, which is somewhat strange. So last week I brought the Rambam. It is like a purchase. It is like acquisition. That is the nature of the mitzvah. It's not just paying debt. So the Rambam goes against the Gra. And I proved the same from Tshuvas HaRashba. And I proved the same from Tshuvas HaRashba. The Rashba says, we don't find a bracha by any matnas kohuna. Ala frosha schalav amasis, mevorach ala frosha. Val Pidyon HaBen ala Pidyon. So you don't ever say a brocha and a sinus matnas kohuna. The Rashba says we don't say brochas and money transfer. By Thomas Amaises, we say the brocha and the hafrosha, not on the nesina, and by Pidyon HaBen the brochas ala Pidyon. So there is Pidyon. The Radbaz is the biggest chiddush of them all. Yotzo lano mekah. She'im rosa hayesoa losa says b'nai lekohen yotzi yedei nesina. You know, I asked last week. The kohen says, "Ma boyest tvei." Well, did it ever happen in history that the father tells the kohen, "You know what? Keep him. The Baz says yes. Yotzer al Mikam. Shem Rotzai Yisrael, Lo says B'nai Lakoin, Yotzer Nesila. He doesn't really mean it. Elo Mishim de Lo Shayach Klal. Lo Shayach. You know, in the yeshivish world, many times when Lamdonim argue, one says to the other, Lo Shayach, Nit Shayach. Explain why. Not always do they know how to explain. Nit Shayach. So that Baz says, Lo Shayach Klal. The Ilish Tamish Bo Ke'eved Yesha. And you saw him K'li You can't sell a child. Ve'ile ben Navzalayu. Kivin de lo shayach by Kenyan Kepetech Amar, lo yotze denasin evet sorach Pidyon. So that it Baz means to say, theoretically, in the abstract, theoretically, the father could say to the kohen, take the baby, keep him. But we all know that is impossible. That is ridiculous. There's no such a thing, giving away a child. So that is why you need Pidyon. But I think that Baz also clearly follows in the footsteps of the Rashba and the Rambam. It's not just a transfer of money. It's not like all the other Matnas Kahuna and Matnas Levia and Matnas Aniyim and Tzedakah Aniyim. It is some form of Pidyon, a transaction. So last week I also quoted the Seforno, and I said the Seforno has no halachic bearing. And last week on our sheet we had a different Seforno, and I mentioned last week that the Seforno says twice, he says the same thing. And the Seforno actually says that a Bechor before Pidyon is Osa lehes asik ba'avoid esedyet, k'mishpat kol hegedish. So all these sources I just bring to prove one thing. We're dealing with Pidyon and not only transferring money. And this gives more power to the argument. If there is no father, nobody can do it. Like the Ramah says, Ein Beis-Din Yochel Livdois Beli Av. And that is the Shitta of the Levush as well. Source number 7. The Levush was a Mordechai Yofo. He was a Talmud of the Ramah and the Marshal, one of the greatest poskim. So let me give you a bit background and biography about the Levush, because when I quote Gedolei Yisrael in my Shiurim, I like to give a bit of background, some biographical background, which I think brings more Ahavas Torah. So the Levush was in the generation of the Beis Yosef, and he was very young. And in introduction to a sefer, he writes, when the Beis Yosef came out, I was so moved. What a monumental work. But I thought that he is too marich, too much arichus. So I started writing a sefer, which would be somewhat of a condensed Beis Yosef, to have a shorter version of the Dalet Turim. So I started working on my sefer on the Levush. And then, in the middle of my work, Rabbi Yosef Karo produced the Shulchan Aruch. And that is the abbreviated version of the Beis Yosef. So I thought my work is in vain. But I looked at the Shulchan Aruch and I said, too short. So the Levush decides, Beis Yosef is too long, Shulchan Aruch is too short. The world still needs my sefer. And we are so happy that the Levush made that decision. Because the Levush also is one of the classics in the halachic world. And it really fits the description. It is much shorter than the Beis Yosef, more elaborate than the Shulchan Aruch. And what is unique about the Levush, it's not only Piska Halacha, but also a lot of commentary and a lot of Svaros. So the Levush, Shin Hey, Sif Yud, that's the very same Sif as the Ramah, Mu'av Atzmai Tzorech Livdois. Sharei Mitzvah Delam Yerachmon Alei. Kamot V'Nevitzitza, Shetzorech Lasis B'Gufoim, V'lo Al Yedei Shaliach. ואפילו בייזן אין יכולים לבדויסם בלואב. אלו הם לא יפודו אב, צורך היא בעצמה לבדסס עצמו כדי אלפינם בפודי תבדה. So the Levush says two things. One, he wants to explain why shlichus wouldn't apply, but it's not very convincing. He says, "Kamoit tefillin v'tzitzis shetzorach lasos begufay v'lo al yedei shliach." And the other point, afilu beis din ein yochel levdis v'lo. If there is no father, we need to patiently wait till the child will become a bar chiyuva, and he will be poide esatz. So number two, the Levush sides with the Rama. Number one, the comparison to tefillin and tzitzis is not really convincing, because tefillin and tzitzis is avodas Hashem. Pidyon HaBen is about the result. Pidyon HaBen is about the outcome. And this is the klal godel, the shlichus b'mitzvahs. Those mitzvahs that are essentially avodas ukeil, there is no shlichus. Those mitzvahs that are all about the result, the outcome, the poyel yoitze, shlichus does apply. So l'cha'oira, the hezber of the Levish, sorech pirush lepirusho. We move down to the next source. Source number 8, Chasam Sofer. Now this Chasam Sofer is beautiful, but it is somewhat interesting. So the Chasam Sofer comes to explain the halacha b'derech drush, b'derech Agudah. And that's in Shuas Chasam Sofer. Venerally, al pi ma shekosvu harishonim b'perek hamed psucham harosh v'aran b'nei Chanukah, אף על גב דנעשה על ידי שליח, מכל מקום מברכים להדלק ולא על הדלוקה, משום דמצווה חביבי, אין לו הוקר לשלוח שליח, ונעשה על ידי עצמו, משום מוכר מבורכן להדלק. It's not exactly what the Rosh and the Ran say. The Rosh and the Ran says, needs to be your shemen. So that is why you need to be mishtatev bepruta if you make a shaliach. But the Chasam Sofer says, "Hocha b'Pidyon HaBen nereli gamken. Ein regilim la'aseh shliach mishum dechsir ba'ovarte b'yeretz Mitzrayim. Ani v'lo shliach. Al ken zrizim la'aseh b'yatzmo b'lo al yedei shliach zeicha l'neis." Interesting. So the Chasam Sofer says, all the mitzvahs of Bechorah are a zeicha liyetzias Mitzrayim. By Yetzias Mitzrayim, we all remember this paragraph in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, V'avarti be'eretz Mitzrayim. Ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo shaliach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself dealt out makas b'chores to Parai v'Mitzrayim. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't do it al yedei shliach, we shouldn't do it al yedei shaliach. Interesting. It is definitely drash, not lumdis, not halacha. But it's a beautiful thought, nevertheless. So the Levush compares Pidyon HaBen to tzitzis and tefillin, which one could question. The Chasam Sofer's pshat is totally b'derech drash v'Agudah, being that all the dinam of Bechorah are zeicher Yetzias Mitzrayim, and b'Yetzias Mitzrayim HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent no shaliach. So that is why we shouldn't send a shaliach. Okay, we still don't have a reasonable explanation why shlichus wouldn't apply. But now we go over to the halacha l'maaseh. What do we do with the yosem? And from the Ramos and Sif Yud, we go to Ramos Sif Tesvav. יש מי שכוסף, דקויסמן לא יתס של כסף, שאינו נבדה וטוילן לו בצבורוי כדי שידע לפלס עצמו כשידע. So the Rama writes, Yesh Oimrim, if there is no father, or for any reason the father did not do Pidyon HaBen, maybe he's not cognizant, maybe, there could be many reasons. Either it's an orphan that has no father, or the father didn't do Pidyon HaBen. I don't recall whether I told you last week. I dealt with a shaila many years ago. A person called me that his brother had a firstborn child, and his brother, Lo Aleinu, is an atheist, and he has no intention of doing Pidyon HaBen. And the baby's uncle, father's brother, said, should I do it for him? And I said, based on the Gra, you should. He's not making you a shliach, but according to the Gra and the Machnafraim and the Tzoi, all the sources we had in last week's session, you don't even need the father's consent. It's like Priyas Chayiv, but you can't make a bracha. I also told him, well, you can't hang a chain on this little boy's neck because his father will kick you out of the house and I'll throw that chain into the garbage. But do make a reminder somewhere to remember that this child, when he's going to be bar mitzvah, needs to do Pidyon HaBen. Because your Pidyon is a questionable one. It's a suffix. Let's hope that when the child will become an adult and he will grow up, somehow he will be about Shuvah and he will be Makabel al Malchus Shemayim. So we need to remember that he needs to do Pidyon HaBen. Who is the Yesh Oimrim? Source number 10, the Maril. The Maril is Avi Minhagei Ashkenaz. Amar Mahari Segal. Chor she'ein ovev kayim. Ein tzorach pidyon ad sheyigdal. Va'az yivde es atzmoi mekoyen acher. Ve'einu ish shechayeves livdoises beno. Ve'chen lu isu be'igra. Masa sheneragu av b'malchemes b'nei chushim. Koidem pidyon benoya b'chor. The father was killed in war, and I don't know which war that is. Melchemes b'nei chushim. V'tzivu Reb Nosson olav Hasholam litol tas shel kesef v'lichtav olav ben kohen v'litlis v'tzavar hayeled lekeshiyigdal yedesh adayenu kori ben kohen ad sheyivdeh es atzmoi. So you hang a chain, a necklace on the child's neck. In our day and age, I think this is not a very practical proposition. You're going to hang a necklace on the child's neck, and the child is going to come to Cheder with a necklace, and all his friends will laugh at him. He's going to be the laughing stock. They're going to ask him, you took it from your sister? What's that strange chain on your neck? And the little boy, all his naivety and tamimis, will take out that necklace and show that he's he needs Pidyon HaBen and he's a Yosim. That necklace won't last long. And the Shach already writes, this is not a practical Eitzah. There's no way that necklace will endure 13 years. So there are more paskins in accordance to the Maril. If there is no father, or a father didn't do Pidyon HaBen, nobody else can do it. And we need to wait till the child grows up and he will do it on his own. But 13 years is a lot of time. Who would remember 13 years later that they need to do Pidyon HaBen? And that's why the Maril's Eitzah is hang a chain on his neck. Turazov disagrees with the Ramah. And this Turazov is somewhat lengthy, but to my dismay, not always do I have time to go over the Maramakoimis. And for some reason, my son-in-law wanted the Tamtzis, but it starts a bit earlier. And the Turazov quotes Sefer Tzedol HaDerech. And the Tzedol HaDerech writes that the Maharal Meprag disagrees with the Ramah. And the Maharal Meprag Paskin, Veloch Alamai, said that Yosem Bezdin should do the Pidyon. First priority to the Zaidi. B'nai Bonim Arei Kabonim. So if the child's father passed away, but his father's father is still with us, is still alive, first priority. Based on the concept of B'nai Bonim Arei Kabonim, maybe that would apply to Pidyon HaBen. So the Seder HaDerech and the Turazov says it is clear that the mitzvah is only upon the father and not upon the Zaidi. But still, if Beis Din can do it, anyone can do it. And that is mitzad zachan la'adam shaloi befanav. So we go to the Taz Sivkot Yud Aleph. Here we are. So first he quotes the Rivash. Nobody can do it, only the father. Seventh line. Ve'hinei kvar es oirer al zeh. I think it's the seventh or the eighth line. 7. Hinei kvar es oirer al zeh b'sefer echod nitpas mechodesh v'shmo tzeder derech v'kosavoy v'parshas boy. Tzeder derech is a beautiful sefer on Parshiyas Torah. Halacha on the Parshiyah. It's like the Minchas Osher, just 500 years older. Echshu toma al zeh. She'oise kaner adeshliach mekoyach kushiyas ois. ומתוך נוחס לפסק שם הלוך על המייסר, חושם הסובב קודם למד יום, יש כוח ביד אבי אובב או ביד בייסטן לבדויסוי. בהרח שם ברייס, וכוסף לבסוף שהעידו שכן פוסק מוריינו הרב לייב מפראג, and that is the Maral מפראג. And then the Taz goes into a lengthy discussion, and his maskana is an interesting one. He says, if there is no father, we can't do Pidyon HaBen. But if the father is alive, but for some reason he didn't do the Pidyon, Zachan la'adam shaloi befanav. What is the difference whether the father is alive or not? So the Taz has an argument, which is a lengthy argument. We won't get into the details. Zachan la'adam shaloi befanav is a huge sugya. And some Rishonim argue, Zachan la'adam shaloi befanav is even if there's a tzad chayva. But fundamentally, we're dealing with the schus. But schia lekoton is only when it's a schus gomor without any tzad chayva. The Taz argument is, when you do Pidyon HaBen for a child, maybe he would prefer to do it on his own when he's a gadol. Mitzvah bo yosem b'shluchai. So it is a schus sheyesh bo ktsas chayva. And therefore, if the father is alive, Zachan la'adam afal pi sheyesh bo ktsas chayva. But if the father is not alive, Schia lekoton is only baschus gemura. And that is why Zachan wouldn't apply. Because maybe if we would ask this child, he would prefer doing the mitzvah on his own at a later stage. The Shach Nekudas HaKesef, and that is our next source. Once again, the Shach, like the Taz, is a bit lengthy. I would suggest going back to the source sheet. The next source is Nekudas HaKesef. I don't know whether everybody knows what Nekudas HaKesef is. Nekudas HaKesef is the Hasudas of the Shach on the Taz. Taz hikshol tzeder derech v'herech v'davas v'sayim achler moiso ki kol divrei bal tzeder derech mechoynim. Rayusa bruro. So the Shach disagrees with the Taz, and the Shach says Zachan lekoton has the same din as Zachan legadol, and there is no difference whether the father is alive, he just didn't do Pidyon HaBen, or the father is dead. We could always do it on Yedei Beis Din, and Beis Din has full authority. And therefore the Shach's psak is, we do not wait. We have the Beis Din or the grandfather doing the Pidyon while the child is still a little child. Let's scroll down a bit. We're not going to go through this lengthy Nekudas HaKesef. I just want to see the end, which is quite interesting. Just looking for the section in which he writes that the Tashel Zov is not a very reasonable idea. Okay, let's look for the Shach. It's not on my source sheet, but let's go back to where we were a moment ago, and we're going to look at the Shach Sivkot Mechov.
You have to put it up.
Shin Hey.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. We're going back to Yoredei Sim Shin Hey. Shach, Sivkot Yud, and Sivkot Mechov. Are we on the Shach? Okay, Sivkot Yud Aleph. אין לו אב יכול לבדוק את השליח, זה תמוה. קיים על המקורת השליחו שלו במקומו יסוי. חיים מבואו בדברי הר"ן. וכן בספר סדר הדרך. That's the same sefer that the Taz quoted. וכן בספר סדר הדרך שחיבר רבי סוחבר, על פירוש רש"י בחומש. ערך שם בתשובה אחרי שהסכימו כמה גדול הדעות, יוכל לבדוק על ידי שליח. לא ימצאנו שום חיוב מן התורה לא דמך, שיעשה עצמו שליח במקום אב לדויסי, מינו אב לא יצא לדויסי, או מסואב. ולבייזן אין מחיוב מן התורה לעשות עצמו שליח במקום אב לדויסי. אבל ודאי שאב יכול לבדוס על ידי שליח, וכן בייזן יכולים לבדוסי ולא יאב. ואם עוברו אב ולא יפדוי, או אם מסו אב קודם שנבדה, וכל שכן שאבי אביו יוכל לבדויסי בחיי גבנה. That is the quote from Tzedel HaDerech. וכן פוסק Marshal. So the Shach says, Basil could do it, grandfather could do it. Sivkot Mechov. We just scroll down, Sivkot Mechov in the Shach. I think, let's see what he writes very short, very briefly in Sivkot Mechov. Here we are. יש מי שכוסף. הראש המגומגם, יש להם גם המחה במועד הבא. לפי מה שכוספתי לאל, סבכות י"א, אין צורך תס של כסף. וגם לרוב פעמים התס של כסף בו לידי עיבוד. They're going to lose that chain. It's ridiculous. על כן טוב יויסה לבדויסה הבייסן כשהוא קוטון. So both the Shach and the Taz rejected him and the Maharil. But there's a difference. The Taz says an orphan, a Yosim, we need to wait. The Shach says even a Yosim, based it has full authority. At the bottom of my source sheet, there's a brief tshuva I wrote, Halacha L'Maisa, about this. And I brought some interesting information. There's a Sefer Hadras Kodesh, and he says 100 years ago in Yerushalayim, there was the same argument spanning more than 600 years. 100 years ago in Yerushalayim, a child was born. His father tragically passed away after the child was born. And if Zedek and Bengis paskined, we need to wait. No, the basin should do Pidyon HaBen. Could we go back to my source sheet? Are we connected?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go back to the source sheet. A brief tshuva at the bottom of the page, which I wrote Halacha L'Maisa. I might not even have brought this, but 100 years ago, there's a Sefer Hadras Kodesh that came out in Yerushalayim. And he writes that a baby was born out of Zeligriv and Pengis Paskin, that the Beis Din should do Pidyon HaBen because the father tragically passed away before he could do Pidyon HaBen. And Rav Bengis was one of the greatest Gedolim in Yerushalayim. And Rav Yoshiv was a Talmud of Rav Zeligriv Bengis. And he paskined that the Beis Din should do Pidyon HaBen. And Rabbi Pesach Frank disagreed. And Rabbi Pesach Frank paskined we need to wait till the child grows up. So I regret that I don't have the Hadras Kodesh on our screen. I will, Bezrat Hashem, send it later. But it's a fascinating story. And Rabbi Pesach Frank writes, my son-in-law, who was a great Talmud Chacham, Reb Shmuel Lazovsky. Reb Shmuel Lazovsky was the Rashiva in Panovich. He was considered the greatest Yeshiva of his time. Kedusha Reb Shmuel is one of the most popular Sforim in yeshivas. And Reb Pesach Frank writes, my son-in-law Reb Shmuel showed me the Biragra. And that is the Gra we learned last week. And that is the Gra we learned today. It's at the top of our page, of our sheet. So my son-in-law Reb Shmuel showed me the Gra, and the Goen says, we don't even need the father's consent. You just pay a debt. But Reb Pesach Frank comes up with a very original argument. Unbelievable. You guys are great. How would we find it? It's a Pesach Frank. So this Sefer is not entirely a Pesach. It's a compilation which Machane Frank produced. And let's try to find it. I don't know whether you could look for words in the Sefer. I would suggest look for the word Reb Zelig Reuven Bengis, if we could look for words. I have no idea about the search engines.
I don't think it's going to be that. Well, we'll try.
It's a very small Sefer. It's a kuntris. Maybe we'll find it easily. But anyway, let me tell you what the story is. So Reb Zelig Reuven Bengis Paskin, the Beis Din should do it. Reb Pesach disagreed, and Reb Pesach, okay. Yeah, let's look for Reb Bengis. Here we are. Reish Vav, Reb Zelig Reuven Bengis. I guess we'll find it. Amud Reish Vav.
I think you're going the wrong way, Pesach. No, this is the Maftech's in the back. Okay.
Yeah, he's going the right way.
Okay, he's going the right way. Almost. Pretty good. Pesach, I must commend you. Yes, yeah, here we are.
Here we are. Okay.
No, keep on going a little bit further if you want to see the psak of Bengis. This is the psak of Rav Pesach.
No, it's all we need is Rav Pesach. Okay.
So there's three. Rav Pesach has 4 tshuvas here. Go to Reish Vav to see if this is what the Rav wants for a second, and then we'll come back.
Okay, here we are. Uvda hava. B'tinik shemei sovev koidim shenoilad, v'avi ovev shoyer em yasahu Pidyon HaBen. ואמרו לו שהגזר בנגס הישב הזה שאבי אבן יעשה פדיון. ולי נראה שאין לו לעשויס. עין תז יורדי שמלך ומסק שלא לעשויס. That's the taz we just learned that is machalik between a Yosem, Chasni Hagrash Razovsky, Heir Gamken, Medivrei Biragra B'Shin Hey. Shekosab, Loma Bayar de Shlich, Hoy de Shlich Shalom Kamoisoi. אף אחר יוכל לבדוס אפילו בדוס ובאו. זה ליודף ממש shiny. So, anybody can do it. But then, Reb Pesach argues, let's scroll down, he comes up with a very original argument. Ola yesh lodun. First line. לא שייך שאחר יבדהו בזמן לא יחל כלל חיוב עדיין על שום אדם. דומה לפוידה בתוך למד הולך על הפדיון. So the Pesach argues, anybody could pay another's debt, but here there is no debt. If the father died before 31st day, the father was never mechuyev. So nobody is mechuyev. And if there is no chayiv, you can't pay a debt.
Is that so pashut that no one is ever mechuyev? I mean, it goes against all the stimus of paiskim, but there is a chiyuv, no?
I think that paiskim, the approach of the paiskim is there's a mitzvah. But the Pesach argues, according to the Goen, if it's only a chiyuv, a monetary chiyuv, so who's mechiyuv? If there's no father, nobody is mechuyev. So the fundamental approach of the others is that Pidyon HaBen is first a mitzvah and only then a monetary chiyuv. But if the Goen argues that it's priyas chayiv, so the Pesach argues the counter argument. But if the father is dead when this chayiv is supposed to be born, then there is no chiyuv. And if there is no chayiv, you can't pay a chayiv that is not relevant. There is no chayiv. So Rabbi Pesach Paskin, according to the Maril and the Ramah and the Taz, we need to wait till this child grows up. Going back to my tshuva, I just have one little argument that none of these great Gedolim argued. It's a very short tshuva. I just bring the fundamentals. Towards the end of the tshuva, I bring the Zohar. And this Zohar isn't quoted by any of the... I also brought the Mari Asad, which is fascinating. The Mari Asad says, we don't wait till the child is a gadol. He's chayav b'din chinuch. So, ba'oines ha'pa'utos mid'rabanan mikchoy menkach u'memkorei menkam. Why should we wait till he's a gadol? Mitzad midin chinuch he has a chiyuv.
He has a din chiyuv chinuch on himself. Isn't that a Maraf Sanigra? I think the points it out.
Chinuch is a separate discussion. Is it a mitzvah on the father or a mitzvah on the cotton? And I wrote many places in my sforum, chinuch is not only on the father, it's on the child as well. So this is a new opinion, Rav Yehuda Asad, and he says that Beis Din can do it, but the child doesn't wait for his bar mitzvah. When he is bar chinuch, and oinus ha'pu'utos is a year before his bar mitzvah, midrabanan, he can do transaction. So at the bottom of the page, metamanel mesu'ah be'emes kodim shigl chayev live l'tzasmi mishiagia la'oinus ha'pu'utos. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Asad. Rabbi Yehuda Asad was a contemporary of the Sefer. He was a Talmud of Rav Mordechai Banet. Let's go back to the Minchas Osher about the Zohar. La'niyas dati, the last paragraph. La'achar shenizgar lo divrei haZohar HaKodesh. The kol b'chor oimed b'sakonas nafoshes kol od lo nivda. ודאי אין להמתין עד שיגדל, אלא יש לדויסוי בזמנוי. אך מכיוון שיש בגדול הפויסקים שנטו שאי אפשר לדויסוי ללוהב, יחזר הבן ויבדס עצמו כשיגדל, ושתי הפדיונויס בלי ברוכה. None of these Gedolim quotes the Zohar, but the Zohar says that a child's life is in jeopardy if Pidyon HaBen was not done. And therefore, we take all the precautions. We will do a pidyon based in the day 31. And because some Gedolim argued that the pidyon wouldn't be valid, we will do it again when the child grows up. But according to the Zohar, we take no risks, and we definitely will do the pidyon as the child is still at the very first opportunity when he's day 31, and we'll do it again. So this Zohar is in Parshas Bereshis, Daf Yud Ches in the Zohar, and this is a source which all the poskim that I mentioned do not bring, and I think it's an extremely relevant source in Anuger Inyaneinu. So as we see, this discussion starts more than 500 years ago between the Maharal and the Maharal. The Maharal and the Ramo on one hand, the Maharal me Prague, the Marshal and the Shach on the other hand, and this Machlokas is still unresolved. And 100 years ago in Yerushalayim, it was a discussion between Reb Zelig and Bengis, who said Beis Din should do it. Reb Hesh Beisach Frank, who said we need to wait till the child grows up. And as I said, up to this very day, this Machlokas is still unresolved. And I also wrote a tshuva, and my tiny little addition to this argument is the Zohar. So if the Zohar said
that's amazing. I mean, Rav Avadia wouldn't have known this Zohar. Isn't it a Chiddush Atzum?
Just a minute. I'm not aware Rav Avadia has a tshuva about this. I didn't see that. Did you see
he
it?
doesn't. But I'm saying he knew, he had encyclopedic knowledge of Zohar. Yabad L'chaim, Rav Hillel also knows Zohar very well. I think this is an unbelievable find by the Rav that to paskin this shiloh and based of this Zohar is unbelievable. It's
Okay.
just it's
Okay.